Hi everyone. So this is the first time I've actually given this kind of talk to a mixed audience of people who are either into multimedia or into Linux. And I'm sure there's a lot of crossover as well. But I know some of you aren't that familiar with some of the topics that I'm going to be talking about. So whether it's multimedia or whether it's the more geeky computer stuff. So I'm going to try to pretend like I'm both in the class on filmmaking that I usually teach, as well as in the geeky community that I also give talks at. So if I say too much that presumes too much that you know something that you don't, let me know. Just raise your hand or whatever. I can backtrack or explain more, and of course you can talk to me after the talk as well. Again, this is a talk on screenwriting software that you can get for free. So, of course, screenwriting, if you've ever written a screenplay, or if you've ever tried, or even if you've just looked online and looked at some things online, that you might have a favorite movie, you might search for the screenplay. So you've probably seen it. Has anyone here not seen a screenplay? Yeah, okay, so we've all seen it online, and it looks really weird, right? It's formatted very specifically. There's actually a method to that. It's not completely random. And we can take a look at an example. So there are a couple of things about screenplay formatting that you'll notice pretty much right off the bat. This looks probably very familiar. Again, it's not just for style. It's not just because they don't do that just because they think it looks good. It actually has a bearing on how long each day you're going to shoot for once you're on set, as well as how long the actual finished product is going to be. Does anyone happen to know how long a page of screenplay usually averages out to on screen time? What's that? Yeah, so about a page a minute. That's generally what's agreed upon. Obviously, you don't just shoot for a minute per page. It doesn't take you 90 minutes to make a 90-minute movie, right? Or unless you're doing real time, but that's a different story. So typically, you need to what's called break down the screenplay. And the assistant director usually does that, and it's actually a very scientific and it's sort of a very specific process. They break it into eighths and all these weird things, and it tells them how long they're going to have to shoot each day and how long they can spend on a certain shot and a certain dialogue scene or a certain action sequence, all that other stuff. So layout matters a lot in the filmmaking industry or world. You'll see things like this, little fade in up on the upper right column, right side, all the way right justified. That's called a transition. It's a fade in, cut to, dissolve to, fade out, things like that. These days people don't really expect you to do a fade in, a cut to, a dissolve, whatever. They use it more like punctuation, and it happens that since this is page 1 of the screenplay, page 1, you start your screenplay with a fade in. That's kind of the industry lingo for, okay, we're starting the screenplay now, as if though it's not obvious. So fade in is always at the beginning, fade out is always at the end. It's just kind of tradition, so not that big of a deal, but it also serves as good punctuation. Like if you've got a very significantly emotional scene and you want to make sure that the director and the actors know that they should really make this scene count, because at the end of this scene, the world of the screen, of the movie has changed. A lot of times they'll do that. They'll do this, they'll write out the scene, and then at the end they'll say cut to or fade out, fade to, something like that. So you know that there was something different about this scene, some kind of punctuation. These guys here, all capital left justified scene descriptions, they're actually called slug lines. And they've got a specific notation. INT for interior, EXT for exterior, the name of the movie location, not the actual place that we're going to shoot. So I might say hacker apartment. That might be my parents' living room that I dressed up to look like an apartment. Or it might actually be a friend of mine's apartment. So it's not the physical location, it's the movie location. And then night or day, just to tell the lighting people what they need to go for. After that, there is what a lot of people will call action blocks. Technically speaking, they're stage direction or screen direction, because that's what they're doing. They're telling the actor what to do while they're on screen or while they're on stage traditionally. So that's generally called screen direction, but the software these days generally call them action. And so that's what I'm probably going to call them as well, because it is kind of a handy notation to have: action, slug line, transition. The other one is dialogue, which is the very classic, not centered. Notice it's not center justified, it's more like a block quote if you're familiar with web design at all. It's kind of, it's indented a lot more than the rest of the text, and it also gets cut off sooner than the rest of the text. So it kind of is in this middle space on the page. Character's name is all capital before the dialogue, and those are the different elements of screenplays that you kind of have in your screenplay if you want it to be taken seriously, not just because it needs to look right, but like I say, it needs to help people plan their shoot. So you can do all of this in a traditional word processor. You can do it on a typewriter. Obviously, 100 years ago when they came up with this idea, they didn't have computers with fancy word processors. Now we do. You can do this all manually, define all of your margins. But at some point, someone figured out that it would be a lot faster to have the computer kind of manage that for you. And they noticed, for instance, that you don't really need tabs in a screenplay because you never hit the tab key. So why don't we make that a trigger for certain things to happen? So they kind of came up with some of these almost predictive things that a word processor could do. They wrote the word processor, they released it, closed source, proprietary code, and of course it costs money. So two things about that. If you're not familiar with free software, some of the free software out there that you probably are familiar with is Firefox. Maybe you've used Thunderbird, or maybe you've used OpenOffice or LibreOffice as they're calling themselves now. VLC player for video people, they probably know that one. There's a lot of really good free software out there, and it turns out that one of the strengths of free software is that it can open practically anything, right? That's why VLC plays any video file you throw at it. You know, I mean, generally people say, hey, if it doesn't play in VLC, it's not a valid video file. So free software uses a lot of open formats, and the proprietary stuff that we have to deal with on a normal everyday basis, like these screenplay writing applications, they save their files into file formats that they don't really tell anyone else how to read. So that's why when you send, or that's one reason why you send a screenplay to someone, you don't send them the file that you saved, right? You always export it to PDF first. You also do that so that they can't go in and change stuff around, either on purpose or by accident. But generally speaking, if your license for your student copy of this screenplay writing software expires, you lose track of it, you get a new computer or whatever, then all those files you can't ever open again. That's bad. I mean, unless you buy the software and stuff like that, but that's a bad thing. Generally speaking, I don't like software that says, okay, you're going to pay us or else we're not going to let you back into your data. I feel like that's a little bit of a extortion, a little blackmail, ransom. Not something I'm fond of. Free software is known for not doing that. So there's a really popular, or a fairly popular screenplay writing application called Celtx, C-E-L-T-X. That's really, really solid. It's based on the same code base as Firefox and Thunderbird and things like that. So you're kind of familiar with the look and feel of it already. And it does a lot of it does really all of the basic formatting for you, and it's very nice. The file format that they use is all based on open standards, HTML and CSS to be specific, so you can pretty much open it no matter what. Now, it's not going to be as nice and pretty if you open it outside of Celtx, but for the most part, Celtx is pretty multi-platform. You can get it for Windows, Mac, and Linux. The problem with Celtics for me was that, well, they're basing their code on open code, free software code, and yet they're not really giving the code back very, very quickly, very promptly. There have been a couple of posts on the forum asking, okay, let's see this code because there are problems with it that we need to address, and we can help you with that if you show us the code, and they're not really doing that. The problem that got me off of it entirely was that at a job of mine, I was using an old Macintosh, PowerPC, old Macintosh, and I was running Linux on it. So not only was I using an old computer, I know I'm going over some of your heads right now, but it's an old computer with with a very niche operating system on it. So Celtics just wouldn't run on it. Now that doesn't mean Celtics can't. It should be able to run on it, but they didn't provide me with the installer for that platform. So I tried to get the code so that I could make an installer, and it didn't work out. So I was looking for a different solution, and that's when I found Vance L. Simpson's very, very good software package called Screenplay-Mode. Screenplay-Mode is a little plugin for another free software, actually, that I use a lot anyway, called Emacs. And Emacs is actually, it's kind of a word processor. It's a very old word processor. It's been around a long time. It's not that hard to use as long as you forget everything you've ever learned about word processing. We're going to look at it in a minute, so you'll see why I'm saying this. Now, again, it's very old. It was invented way before the conventions that we kind of got used to on modern word processors were even invented. So you literally just have to think of it as a completely different animal. And then if you start fresh, then you kind of see the logic behind it. But one of the major advantages of Emacs is that it's got this really extensible and rich plugin structure, one of which allows things like screenplay mode to exist, meaning that if you activate this in Emacs, suddenly your little word processor turns into a very powerful screenplay writing application. It's free. There were a couple of problems with it. The code was open, so I took the code and fixed a couple of actually two little problems with it. And just because I couldn't get a hold of Vance L. Simpson, the guy who originally wrote this thing, I can't find him. If you're out there, Vance, feel free to hit me up. And I just wanted to make sure that people were aware that this existed and had my little additions that I made to the software. So right now I'm maintaining it, and just to distinguish between Vance L. Simpson's version and my version, and again, it's really all his code with just two little tiny patches from me, plus the added advantage that I'm here. I'm willing to help you work with this. So if you're having problems, feel free to hit me up. So this is kind of the launching page for my modified version of Vance L. Simpson's original version, just to differentiate between the two, so that you know that you got the patched version. It's Screenwriter-Mode. So Screenwriter-Mode is the plugin. Emacs is the application that we're going to be using. Emacs, as it turns out, is available for everything. So if you're on Linux, which this is, you're looking at Linux right now. If you're on Linux, you either already have it, or it'll be very easy to get. And you can usually launch it however you launch your applications, but that's kind of what the icon will probably look like. It's free to download. It's very easy to get. If you don't have it, then you can install it from your software repository pretty easily and pretty quickly. It's very ubiquitous. It won't be something that's very hard to find. So that's for Linux.